It's Jason Abraham, the Shadow Teacher, and I'm going to share with you a quote that Paul Chek frequently shares on his podcast, Living 4D with Paul Chek, and it's a quote by Rudolf Steiner. It's a quote I'm going to butcher because I can't remember the exact quote, but the concept hits me very hard, and I definitely am going to be able to communicate this concept. And that quote is, unless mankind grasps that the technology they worship outside of themselves is nothing more than an imitation of the technology available within themselves, and unless mankind can tap in to that technology that's available within themselves, they most likely will destroy themselves and destroy the planet as well. Now again, I'm butchering the quote, but this is the idea. And if anybody knows the exact Rudolf Steiner quote, feel free to post it in the comments. But it's the idea that everything out here is an imitation from what's in here. Kind of goes into simulation theory, and again, Rudolf Steiner was talking about this in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And Rudolf Steiner is one who comes from a Rosicrucian background. The legend is he was initiated into Christian mysticism through a Rosicrucianist, and he eventually went on to be involved with the Theosophical Society and then broke away to do his own thing with anthroposophy. But the driving force in the Steiner consciousness is that there is a conscious creative spark, that the creator of the universe, the spark of creation, is conscious and aware. And this shows up in all of creation. All of creation is an indication that there's a higher consciousness at play within us and with nature, and that human consciousness is connected to that spark and is also connected to nature. It's connected to our planet as well as our galaxy, our universe. And we are called to understand how our individual consciousness can participate in this grander life process and contribute to the life process in its fullest expression. And freedom is a high value of this ideology. I believe Steiner's first book is The Philosophy of Freedom. And individual sovereignty is a high value. And this is very different from the philosophy as that where that there is no intelligence, there's no consciousness behind what we experience. There's a consciousness in mankind, but everything else is chaotic, and therefore the nature and all that is outside of mankind and what mankind can control is a threat. And therefore, only through controlling these chaotic forces can mankind thrive, which is more of a Darwinist philosophy, and a philosophy of survival of the fittest, as whoever can control the forces of nature, whoever is most fit to control and dominate, is therefore the most valuable on the planet. And once again, we have a split. Like the Steiner philosophy is seeing value in the human existence, and no higher value than a human understanding their own purpose and embodying sovereignty in their life, where the other philosophy sort of, I guess you could say it's sovereignty for a select few, but for the many, it's subjugation to the select few. And again, this is sort of what we go back to with technology. When one is always worshiping technology that's created or seems to be created or brought forth by a great mind that is celebrated in the world. And one celebrates that over than looking into their own life and their own potential and looking at their own creative capacity. When people get all caught up in the hoopla and the fanfare of what's out there and the great things and the great systems being implemented in one's life by someone else, this usually shows up in the form of creating something that makes life quicker, easier, more pleasurable. When one gets so caught up in this worship and neglects what's inside, then they are participating in their own destruction and eventually going to be participating in the destruction of the planet as a whole, because you are giving up your sovereignty to something else. That's how I take into that, or that's an aspect that hits me hard right now of this particular theme and this idea with all that is going on. But ultimately, again, I believe we are sovereign beings and we have a choice. And just like the Rush song says, even if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And there are those who are going to believe the opposite perspective and debate me on this. That's okay. You are free, again, to have that belief. And you'll probably show me evidence of that belief. But there's plenty of evidence, again, on what I believe as well. And all that I know is the richness and so much of what I value in my life comes from creative expression, comes from how creativity wants to move through me. And